Imagine being abandoned by your two children in a nursing home after the age of 75. That's what happened to Julia Hathaway. Her tired eyes reflected the sadness of her soul, a sadness that had become her constant companion since her children, Roger and Lisa, had grown apart. Once, they were the center of her life, the reason she woke up every morning with renewed purpose. But now, they were rarely present in her life. Roger, the oldest, was always the most distant. His rising career and prosperous business led him to a life of luxury and comfort, but also took him away from the warmth of his family. Lisa, the youngest, a free and restless soul, found her own way in the world, seeking adventures that took her away from the sweet routine of home. Julia didn't blame her children for following their own paths, but the pain of loneliness deepened more and more. The days dragged by like silent shadows, filled with memories of better times, when the house echoed with children's laughter and the aroma of freshly baked cakes. On that particular day, Julia sat in her favorite armchair, looking out the window toward the garden, where the withered flowers testified to her own loneliness. The phone remained silent, not a single ring to break the monotony that had settled into her life. The sun began to slowly decline, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The void left by Roger and Lisa still persisted. She wondered where she went wrong, what she could have done differently to keep her children close. Sometimes she found herself looking through old photo albums, reliving memories of a time when family was all that mattered. Julia sighed, resigned to her loneliness, when suddenly a cell phone ring interrupted the silence. Julia answered, expecting it to be one of her children. "Hi, Mom, it's me, Roger," announced the voice on the other end of the line. The relief in Julia's voice was palpable. "Ah, Roger, it's been so long since I heard your voice. I've missed you so much, darling." Roger responded in a practiced tone, "Lisa and I have been thinking that we need to spend more time with you. We're considering a visit. What do you think?" A flame of joy shone in Julia. "Oh, that would be wonderful, my dears. I can't wait," she replied, hanging up the phone. Her smile lit up the room. She had no idea that that call would be the beginning of a series of events that would change her life forever. On a cold autumn night, a car's headlights illuminated Mildred's driveway. Roger and Lisa, both with worried expressions, got out of the vehicle and approached the front door. Lisa, the younger of the two, with makeup perfectly applied to hide the marks of time, looked at Roger with a dubious expression. "Do you think she will believe us?" she whispered nervously. Roger, older and with deep worry lines on his face, looked at Lisa with a serious but determined look. "She needs to believe it, Lisa. We have no other choice." They knocked on the door and were greeted by Julia's beaming smile. "Mom," Lisa murmured, rushing to hug her, followed by Roger, whose eyes were wet with unshed tears. Julia could hardly believe the scene before her, her children finally returning home after so long. "Roger, Lisa," she exclaimed, hugging them both warmly. "Come in. I've prepared dinner." During dinner, Roger and Lisa filled the old house with laughter and stories of their lives in the big city. They talked about their jobs, friends, and even the difficulties they were facing. However, they omitted the crucial part of their lives, their desperate financial situation. In the following days, Roger and Lisa's visits became frequent. They helped Julia with the housework, brought gifts, and made all kinds of gestures that fueled Julia's hope of having her children back. Words flowed between them, a mixture of regret and love, as they sat together in the shade of the trees, sharing stories and memories. Roger and Lisa explained that life had taken them apart, but that they had never forgotten their mother's love and sacrifices. Roger and Lisa, her children, had come to visit her that Saturday afternoon. They brought with them the hustle and bustle of the big city, a pulsating energy that contrasted with the stillness of the countryside. Sitting around the kitchen table, they shared stories of their busy lives, challenging jobs, busy nights, and dreams they still had. As Julia listened to them, she couldn't help but notice the nostalgia in their eyes, the longing for a time when they were closer, more united. The exchange of looks between the brothers revealed the satisfaction they felt. "Mom," Roger interrupted, "Lisa and I think, and we miss you. Why don't you come live with us in town, Mom? How about selling this house and coming to live with us in the city?" Surprised by the suggestion, Julia looked at her children, tears of joy flooding her eyes. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. The possibility of living with her children again was all she wanted. The idea hung in the air for a moment, enveloping everyone in reflective silence. Julia looked around at the walls that had witnessed so many stories. It was hard to imagine leaving everything behind, but at the same time, the prospect of being closer to her children, of sharing their lives in a more intimate way, was tempting. "It's an interesting idea," she admitted, her soft voice echoing in the kitchen. "But it is an important decision that needs to be considered carefully." And so began a period of reflection for Julia. During the days that followed, she delved into her memories, revisiting the happy moments and challenges she faced. She talked to friends and neighbors, shared her doubts and hopes, seeking guidance in the voices of those who knew her so well. Roger and Lisa returned to visit her several times, bringing with them plans and promises of a shared life in the city. They talked about the museums and theaters, the parks and restaurants, the infinite possibilities that awaited her on the other side of that urban horizon. And, little by little, the contours of the future began to emerge before Julia's eyes, a landscape of new experiences and opportunities that she was waiting to explore. Yet there was also a thread of melancholy woven into his thoughts, a sense of impending loss at the prospect of leaving behind everything he knew and loved. In the midst of this whirlwind of emotions, Julia found herself at a crossroads, a starting point that required courage and determination. And then, with a heavy and hopeful heart at the same time, she made a decision. She would sell the house and join her children in the city. However, she had no idea that her dreams were about to turn into a nightmare. She loved her home, but the idea of living with her children, seeing their faces every day and sharing their lives filled her with emotion. Finally, one night, she made a decision. "Children," Julia began one night, "Roger and Lisa, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I've decided to sell the house and move in with you." The brothers exchanged furtive glances, their faces masking the satisfaction they felt. "Oh, Mom, we're so happy," Lisa exclaimed, standing up to hug Julia. "You're going to love the city, I'm sure." "Roger, Mommy, how are you feeling now that you've made this important decision?" "It's a mix of feelings, son. On the one hand, I'm excited about the idea of starting a new life in the city, exploring all these opportunities that you've told me so much about. But on the other hand, I feel a deep sadness at the thought of leaving behind so many precious memories I have in this house, in this neighborhood." "I completely understand, Mom," says Lisa. "Change always brings with it a whirlwind of emotions. But I'm sure that, over time, you will adapt and create new wonderful memories in the city." "I hope so, Lisa. It's comforting to hear that from you. Still, I can't shake this feeling of melancholy at the thought of saying goodbye to it all." Roger exclaims, "It's completely understandable, Mom. Moving to a new place is like closing one book and opening another. But keep in mind that every page of this new book can be as exciting as the pages you are leaving behind." "You're right, Roger. Life is made up of chapters, and I think it's time to turn the page and see what the next chapter has in store for me. We are here to help you every step of the way, Mom. You are not alone on this journey. We look forward to sharing all these new experiences with you." "Thank you, Lisa. Your support means a lot to me. I know it will be difficult at first, but I am ready to face this challenge and see where this new adventure takes me." "That's right, Mom. We are confident that wonderful things are in store for you. And we will be here, side by side, to face any obstacle that comes our way. You are wonderful. I am grateful to have you by my side on this journey. And who knows, maybe this change will bring not only challenges but also opportunities one never imagined." "That's it, Mommy. Keep your heart open to all possibilities. Sometimes, it is in moments of change that we discover what we are truly capable of achieving." "Thank you for these inspiring words, daughter. I feel more confident now, more ready to embrace this new phase of my life. We are happy to see you like this. Remember, we are always ready for whatever you need, no matter what." "This means a lot to me, Roger. I'm lucky to have such incredible children like you by my side. Together, I am sure we can face any challenge the future holds." With the decision made, things moved quickly. The house was put up for sale and, to Julia's surprise, it was sold in a short time. She found herself surrounded by boxes and packaging, her belongings being packed for the move. As she packed up her photo albums, Julia felt a pang of sadness as she said goodbye to the house that had been her home for so many years. "I'm going to miss this place," she said softly, stroking the frame of an old photograph. "Don't worry, Mom," Roger said, placing a comforting arm around her shoulders. "You'll love the city, and most importantly, we'll all be together." At that moment, Julia didn't notice the complicit look exchanged between Roger and Lisa. She was far from imagining the true intention behind his comforting words. The move was a frenzy of activity, boxes being packed and souvenirs being carefully packed for the journey ahead. Friends and neighbors rallied to help, offering their shoulders and hands to make the transition smoother. And, in the midst of all the chaos, Julia found solace in the loving presence of those around her, in the knowledge that she was not alone on this new journey. The days leading up to the move were filled with a mix of emotions for Julia. On the one hand, there was the excitement of starting a new phase of life, exploring new places and making new memories with those she loved. On the other hand, there was the nostalgia of leaving behind the house that had been her refuge for so many years, the corners that witnessed her joys and sadness, the gardens that blossomed with the passing of the seasons. When moving day arrived, anxiety mixed with excitement as Julia packed her souvenirs into cardboard boxes, preparing for a new adventure. Her heart overflowed with hope and gratitude for having such a loving family and for having the chance to be closer to them. Finally, the day of farewell arrived. With a mixture of excitement and nervousness, she said goodbye to her home. And then, with a sigh of resignation and gratitude, she closed the door behind her, ready for the next chapter of her life. The journey to the big city was punctuated by landscapes in constant transformation, the green of the trees giving way to tall buildings and the incessant movement of the streets. Julia looked out the car window with eyes full of curiosity and wonder, taking in every detail of the landscape that unfolded before her. Arriving in the city was a shock of reality, a whirlwind of colors and sounds that flooded her senses. Tall buildings rose toward the sky, the streets pulsed with frenetic energy, and people moved at a rapid pace that seemed to defy the very notion of time. It was a new land of promise and possibilities, but also of challenges and uncertainties that Julia had yet to discover. As the days unfolded, Julia began to discover the charms and challenges of life in the metropolis, the nuances and contradictions that her children told her about. When they arrived at their destination, however, a feeling of strangeness began to take over Julia. Instead of being taken to the apartment Roger and Lisa had chosen, the car stopped in front of an imposing building, surrounded by manicured gardens and winding paths. A lump formed in Julia's throat when she realized where they were. It was a nursing home, with its silent corridors and its rows of rooms, where the walls seemed to whisper stories of lives that had already passed through there. Confused and stunned, Julia looked at her children for explanations. Roger and Lisa exchanged disconcerted glances, their expressions reflecting a mixture of discomfort and hesitation. Upon arriving at her final destination, Julia realized the true nature of her new home. Roger turned to his mother and said, "Mom, we need to talk." Julia asked, "What's going on? Why do we stop here? Aren't we supposed to go to the apartment you chose?" Lisa responds, "Mom, there have been some changes in plans. We need to explain." Changes in plans? But what does it mean? Why are we in front of a nursing home, a home for the elderly? She said, confused. "Mom dear," Lisa began, her voice wavering. "We thought it would be best for you to live here where you can receive the care you need. We know this may come as a shock, but we have thought long and hard about it and decided it would be best for you. Your health has been a concern, for we have seen how difficult it has been for you to handle all the responsibilities of daily life." The words fell like a weight on Julia's shoulders, a shadow of disbelief hanging over her. She looked around at the empty hallways and impersonal rooms, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. "But I thought we were going to the apartment," she murmured, her voice shaking with disappointment. Roger walked over and held her hands tenderly, his gaze brimming with regret. "We just wanted the best for you, Mom. We thought it would be easier this way, with you getting the care you need and being close to us. This place offers round-the-clock care, nearby medical care, and companionship for you. We're sorry for not being honest from the beginning," Roger began, his voice shaking, avoiding your gaze. We cannot support one more person in our apartment, and with the money from the sale of your house, we were able to guarantee a safe and comfortable stay for you here. Mom, we only want the best for you. Please try to understand." Julia's heart sank. She looked at Lisa, hoping to see some sign that this was just a bad joke, but Lisa's face was serious, her eyes filled with tears. "Children, I understand," she said, forcing a smile. "It's a new beginning." However, behind the facade of courage, Julia felt a deep sadness. Julia just wanted to continue living her life, in her home, with her independence. She was losing her home, the familiarity of her garden and, most of all, the hope of being with her children again. Julia's heart filled with a mixture of sadness and indignation. She had never imagined that her move to the big city would be like this, that her children would make such an important decision for her, without even consulting her wishes and desires. For a moment, she felt lost, as if she were adrift in a sea of uncertainty. But then, a flame of determination ignited within her, a determination to regain control of her life and make her voice count. With determined steps, Julia walked away from her children and began to explore the halls of the nursing home. As she walked, her mind filled with memories and reflections, remembering the years of independence and autonomy that had shaped her identity. She met other residents, each with their own story and their own battles. She met people whose smiles hid deep pain, whose eyes shone with the hope of better days. And, in the midst of these encounters, Julia discovered a new strength within herself, a strength that drove her to fight for her dignity and her right to live with autonomy and freedom. As the days went by, Julia began to get involved in the life of the nursing home, participating in activities and making friends with other residents. She discovered a welcoming community, where stories were shared and experiences were valued, where the past intertwined with the present in a tapestry of memories and dreams. But she was a strong-minded woman and decided to face the situation head-on. One afternoon, while sitting in the garden of the nursing home, Julia saw an old house for sale across the street. Something about that house caught her attention. She looked lonely, just like her. Remembering her hidden savings, Julia decided to buy the house. When she shared the news with her children, they laughed, doubting Julia. The loneliness sometimes wrapped around her like a cloak, the unfamiliar faces and strange voices echoing around her. The tumultuous streets seemed distant and impersonal, the fleeting encounters leaving her with a feeling of emptiness that was difficult to dispel. And, in the silence of the night, when the city lights went out and the world plunged into darkness, Julia found herself confronted with her own fears and uncertainties, questioning the choices that had led her there. It was in moments like these that she turned to the memories of her old home, to the memories that continued to weave themselves around her like a familiar blanket. She recalled the peaceful days in the field, the moments shared with friends and family, the laughter and tears that had shaped her journey to that point. And with each memory came a deeper understanding of the value of what she had left behind. And although her children's decisions still weighed heavily on her heart, Julia found comfort in the knowledge that her life still had purpose and meaning, that each day was an opportunity to learn, grow, and connect with those around her. Over time, Roger and Lisa began to realize their mother's strength and determination, her ability to adapt and thrive even in the face of the toughest challenges. And, little by little, they began to recognize her error in decision, to understand that true love does not reside in impositions and restrictions, but in freedom of choice and unconditional acceptance. One day, Roger and Lisa came to visit Julia at the nursing home, bringing with them words of repentance and reconciliation. And, before their mother's loving gaze, they found the courage to ask for forgiveness for having tried to control her life, for not listening to her desires and needs. "Hello, Mom. Are you feeling well today?" says Roger. "I'm so happy to see you, darling." Lisa then says, "Mom, we have something important to tell you. We want to apologize. We realize that we haven't been fair to you. We tried to control your life, we didn't give you space to be who you really are, eh? I understand, my loves. Life is full of challenges and we all make mistakes. The important thing is to recognize it and try to do better. We're so sorry, Mom. We want you to know that we're here to support you, to listen to your wants and your needs," says Lisa. "Hearing you say that is everything I could ever ask for. Thank you for having the courage to admit your mistakes." Julia hugged them tenderly, her heart overflowing with forgiveness and understanding. She knew the path to reconciliation was long and winding, full of challenges and obstacles, but also full of love and hope. Julia walked slowly through the halls of the nursing home, feeling the weight of the years accumulated on her shoulders and the loneliness that had settled in her heart. Her footsteps echoed on the white walls, as she wondered if she would ever find a ray of light capable of illuminating her dark path. At 75 years old, Julia faced the monotonous routine of that place, where the days dragged by slowly, as if time had decided to forget those who lived there. She felt lost amid memories of a distant past, where life pulsed with intensity and dreams seemed achievable. She sat in a chair by the window, watching the cloudy sky outside. The wind whispered secrets from times gone by, but Julia could no longer decipher its messages. She closed her eyes, letting herself be enveloped by the melancholy that had accompanied her for so long. It was then that a soft voice broke the silence around her. Julia opened her eyes and saw a smiling woman approaching, carrying a tray with cups of steaming tea. "Hello, honey, can I sit here?" asked the woman, whose eyes shone with a comforting light. Julia accepted, curious about the presence of this stranger who seemed to radiate human warmth in such a cold place. "My name is Sarah," the woman said, offering Julia a cup of tea. "I saw you here alone and thought you might like some company." Julia accepted the tea, feeling grateful for Sarah's kindness. They started talking, sharing stories and memories of their lives. Julia discovered that Sarah regularly visited the nursing home to spend time with the residents, spreading joy and kindness wherever she went. As the days went by, Julia and Sarah became inseparable friends. Sarah brought light to Julia's life, teaching her to see beauty even in the darkest moments. Together, they explored the forgotten corners of the nursing home, rekindling long-lost memories. On a sunny afternoon, while strolling through the gardens, Julia and Sarah met Jack, a kind and attentive man who took care of the flowers with love and dedication. His blue eyes reflected the serenity of the sky, and his smile lit up the path he passed. Jack joined them, and soon the three became a makeshift family, united by a common desire to find joy and purpose amid the monotony of nursing home life. Together, they shared laughter and tears, building bonds that transcended the barriers of time and space. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Julia, Sarah, and Jack became a united force, facing together the challenges life threw at them. As time passed, new faces joined their improvised family, bringing with them unique life stories and experiences. Among the new family members were Sarah and Jack's children, young people full of energy and enthusiasm, whose presence brought a new sense of vitality to the care home. They spent hours talking to residents, listening to their stories and sharing their own adventures. Julia found comfort in the presence of young people, whose indomitable spirit was a constant reminder that life was meant to be lived with passion and determination. She saw in them the promise of a bright future, where dreams were possible and limits were just a fleeting illusion. As the months turned into years, Julia discovered that life in the nursing home did not need to be a burden to be borne, but rather a gift to be celebrated. She found comfort in the little things, like a kind smile and lively conversation. Surrounded by friends and loved ones, Julia discovered that the true meaning of life lies not in the number of years we live, but in the quality of the moments we share with those we love. At the nursing home, she found a new family, whose love and support would accompany her until the end of her days. And even when time finally caught up with her, Julia would know what legacy of hers would live on through those she touched with her kindness and generosity. For in the heart of the nursing home, she found not just a home, but a haven of love and acceptance, where her soul could finally find peace. The small town of Oakwood Hills was plunged into a heavy silence that gray autumn. The yellowing leaves danced in the wind as residents went about their daily routines. It was a quiet town, where few things happened to change the monotony of everyday life. However, everything changed when Julia Hathaway, one of the city's richest and most respected residents, passed away unexpectedly. The news of Julia's death quickly spread throughout the community, leaving everyone shocked and saddened. Julia was known for her generosity and kindness to others, and her warm presence was a key part of the town. Her absence left a void that seemed impossible to fill. As the city mourned the loss of Julia, a rumor began to circulate among residents. It was said that Julia had left a surprising will, which would change the fate of her vast fortune, which no one knew she had. Curiosity and speculation spread throughout the city, and soon everyone was eager to know what was written on the pages of Julia's will. Finally, the day of the will reading arrived. Residents gathered in the city's courtroom, eager to hear Julia Hathaway's last wishes and desires. The family's lawyer, a proper middle-aged man named Benjamin Hayes, opened a sealed envelope and began to read aloud the words Julia had left in her charge. Julia's final wishes were about to be revealed, and no one could predict what would happen next. The office of respected lawyer Benjamin Hayes was shrouded in fog. In the center of the room, Benjamin stood behind a dark mahogany desk, the sunlight reflecting off its polished surface and highlighting the grave expression on his face. He took out the thick envelope, Julia's will, and everyone held their breath, waiting for him to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," Benjamin began, his voice filling the room, echoing off the stone walls. "I am here to fulfill a duty of extreme importance and sensitivity, to read the last will and testament of our esteemed Julia Hathaway." He paused, his eyes sweeping over the astonished faces in the room, before announcing with a monetary value equivalent to several $1 million. The room erupted into hushed whispers, the previous tension evaporating and being replaced by a palpable shock. And so, Julia Bennett's final wishes began to change the course of everyone's lives in that room. "I, Julia Hathaway, being of sound mind and healthy body, make this last will and testament," began the lawyer, while the room fell into complete silence. As Benjamin Hayes read aloud, looks of shock and disbelief spread across the faces of those present. The will revealed that the majority of Julia's fortune would be donated to a local nursing home and to the family of Sarah and Jack Thompson, two young people who became Julia's friends, lived in Oakwood Hills but were always present at the nursing home, caring and paying attention to Julia. News of the will left the community in shock. Many could hardly believe that Julia Hathaway, a woman known for her prudence and wisdom, would have made such an unexpected decision regarding her fortune. What would have led Julia to choose the two friends, instead of leaving her fortune to her children, Roger and Lisa? As the town tries to understand the reasons behind Julia's decisions, Sarah and Jack find themselves at the center of a storm of emotions. Suddenly, they became the heirs to a fortune they never expected to receive. For Sarah, who always dreamed of opening her own business, the news was like a ray of hope in the midst of darkness. For Jack, who was struggling to support his own family, it was an opportunity to provide a better life for his loved ones. However, the inheritance did not come without its own set of challenges. As Sarah and Jack tried to adapt to their new reality, they faced distrust and envy from some members of the community. Some believed they did not deserve the fortune Julia left them, while others saw the donation to the nursing home as a waste of resources that could have been used more profitably. Meanwhile, at the local nursing home, news of Julia Hathaway's generous donation brought a new sense of hope and joy. Residents, many of whom were struggling with loneliness and illness, saw the donation as a sign that they were not forgotten by the community. Nursing home staff began making plans to improve the facility and offer more services to residents, thanks to Julia's generosity. As the city adapted to the changes brought about by Julia's will, secrets and intrigue began to emerge from the shadows of the past. Rumors about Julia's relationship with Sarah and Jack began to circulate, fueling speculation about the reasons behind her last-minute decisions. Sarah and Jack were stunned by the revelations about Julia's past and her relationship with her parents. They had always believed that Julia had chosen them as her heirs because of her love for them, but now they began to question their own motivations and the secrets that Julia had kept throughout her life. Meanwhile, Benjamin Hayes, the family's lawyer, found himself at the center of a whirlwind of emotions and conflicts of interest. He had been tasked by Julia with ensuring that her last wishes were carried out, but now he found himself struggling to maintain peace and harmony among members of the community who were divided over the legacy left by Julia Hathaway. The days following the reading of Julia Hathaway's will were difficult for Roger and Lisa, her biological children. The news that her mother had left them nothing as an inheritance was a painful blow, which deeply shook their lives and relationships. Roger, the eldest son, always had a complicated relationship with his mother. Since he was young, he felt that he could never meet Julia's expectations. His efforts to stand out and win her affection always seemed to fall flat, leaving him with a feeling of inadequacy and resentment. When he learned that his mother had left her fortune to the nursing home and to Sarah and Jack, Roger felt as if he had once again been rejected by her. The feeling of abandonment and helplessness that Roger experienced left him in a state of confusion and pain. He wondered if his mother had ever really loved him, or if he had always just been a disappointment to her. The tumultuous emotions led him to question his own identity and value as a person, leaving him lost in a sea of doubt and uncertainty. Lisa, on the other hand, has always had a closer relationship with her mother. She admired Julia's generosity and compassion, and saw her as a role model. When she discovered that her mother had left her nothing in her inheritance, Lisa felt betrayed and abandoned. She had always believed that she had a special bond with her mother, but now that belief was being challenged in a painful way. The pain of betrayal and rejection that Lisa felt was amplified by the fact that she had shared so many precious moments with her mother over the years. Every memory now seemed tainted by the feeling that her mother had deceived her and left her out of her will. Lisa felt lost and disoriented, struggling to find meaning in her own existence amid the emotional chaos unfolding around her.